My wife stopped wearing her wedding ring the day she got promoted. I stopped believing in fairy tales the day she didn't notice I was watching. Alma Fallon sat across from me at our mahogany dining table, her manicured fingers wrapped around a wine glass, the pale band of skin on her ring finger catching the chandelier light like a neon sign advertising betrayal. 22 years of marriage, and she thought I wouldn't notice. "Cedric, are you listening?" Her voice carried that sharp edge I'd grown to despise, the tone she used when addressing incompetent subordinates at her public relations firm. "Always listening, sweetheart." I carved another piece of the overpriced steak she'd insisted on ordering from that pretentious downtown restaurant. "Just admiring your hands. They look different somehow." She glanced down briefly, then back at me with those ice blue eyes that once made my heart skip. Now they just made me calculate. "I've been using a new moisturizer." That must be it. Our kids, Ross and Maya, sat between us like referees at a boxing match. Ross, 20 and home from college for the weekend, kept his eyes glued to his phone. Maya, 17 and sharp as her mother but with twice the heart, watched the exchange with growing discomfort. "Dad, you're being weird," Maya said, twirling pasta around her fork with aggressive precision. "Weird how?" "That voice you're using. Like when you're debugging code and pretending everything's fine while the whole system crashes." "Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes." Alma's sister Vanna chose that moment to walk into the dining room, fresh from her shower, auburn hair still damp and curling at the edges. At 35, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd recently shed both excess weight and an unfaithful husband. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, and she'd been staying with us ever since. "Sorry I'm late," Vanna said, sliding into the chair next to me. "Conference call with my lawyer ran long." She smelled like jasmine and possibility. I noticed Alma's jaw tighten. "How's the settlement progressing?" I asked, genuinely interested. Vanna's ex-husband had been a piece of work. Controlling, manipulative, the kind of man who monitored bank statements and questioned every purchase. "Better than expected. Turns out hiding assets in your mother's name isn't as clever as Derek thought." Vanna reached for the wine bottle, her arm brushing against mine. "Some men really underestimate what their wives know." The comment hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Alma's knuckles went white around her glass. "Speaking of knowing things," I said, keeping my voice light. "Alma, I meant to ask about those late nights at the office. The Peterson account must be demanding." "Extremely demanding." She didn't meet my eyes. "Trent Duvall is very hands-on with his investments." Trent Duvall, venture capitalist, former college athlete, drove a silver Porsche and wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I'd met him twice at Alma's company functions, once when he'd gripped my hand too long and smiled too wide, and again when I'd caught him staring at my wife's legs during a presentation. "Hands-on," I repeated. "That's one way to put it." Vanna coughed, hiding what might have been a laugh behind her napkin. "What's that supposed to mean?" Alma's voice climbed half an octave. "Nothing at all, just making conversation." I stood, gathering plates with practiced efficiency. "Who wants dessert?" "I picked up that chocolate cake from Whole Foods, the one with the raspberry filling you love, Vanna." "You remembered." Vanna's smile was warm, genuine. "That's sweet of you." "I remember lots of things." In the kitchen, I loaded the dishwasher and listened to the muffled conversation from the dining room. Alma's voice, tight with barely controlled irritation. Vanna's responses, measured and calm. The kids discussing weekend plans. My phone buzzed. A text from my coworker, Jules. "Emergency at the office. Server migration went sideways. Need you here ASAP." Perfect timing. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I returned to the dining room. Work calls, server emergency. On a Friday night? Alma looked almost relieved. Technology doesn't observe weekends. I kissed the top of Maya's head, squeezed Ross's shoulder. "Don't wait up." "I never do anymore," Alma said quietly. The comment stung because it was true. We'd been living like polite strangers for months, sharing space but not lives, maintaining the facade for the kids and the neighbors and ourselves. I grabbed my keys and jacket, pausing at the door. Through the dining room archway, I watched Vanna lean closer to Alma, their heads bent together in conversation. Whatever she was saying made Alma's face flush red. Interesting. The drive to my office gave me time to think. Cedric Fallon, 42 years old, senior software architect at Meridian Systems, husband to a woman who'd forgotten she was married, father to 2 kids who deserved better than watching their parents' marriage dissolve in slow motion. I'd built my career on solving problems, finding the bugs in complex systems, identifying weak points, creating elegant solutions. Marriage, it turned out, was just another system, and this one had more bugs than a beta release. The office building was mostly empty, just the security guard and a few dedicated souls hunched over keyboards in the glow of multiple monitors. I badged in and took the elevator to the 7th floor. Jules looked up from his workstation, dark circles under his eyes, and an energy drink graveyard surrounding his keyboard. Thank God you're here. The Peterson migration is completely foobar. Peterson? The name sent a chill down my spine. As in Peterson Holdings, Trent Duvall's company? That's the one. Their entire customer database is corrupted. We're talking millions of records, years of transaction history. If we can't fix this, they'll sue us into oblivion. I sat down at my workstation and pulled up the diagnostic reports. The corruption was extensive but not random. Someone had accessed the system with administrative privileges and made changes that cascaded through the entire database structure. When did this start? I asked. About 3 hours ago, right after someone logged in with Alma's credentials. My fingers froze over the keyboard. My wife's credentials? Yeah, she's listed as the Peterson account liaison. Has full access to their systems for the PR integration we're doing. Jules frowned. Weird that she'd be working on a Friday night, though. Thought she was more of a wine and dinner type. Wine and dinner, with Trent Duvall, no doubt, while his company's data went up in flames. Pull the access logs, I said. I want to see exactly what happened. The logs told a story that made my stomach clench. Alma's credentials had been used to access sensitive areas of the Peterson system, but the IP address wasn't from her office or our home. It was from the Fairmont Hotel downtown, the same hotel where I'd found that receipt in her purse last week. Jules, I need you to document everything. Timestamps, IP addresses, the works, and make copies of all the logs. You think someone compromised her account? Something like that. I spent the next 4 hours rebuilding the Peterson database from backup files, my mind working on 2 problems simultaneously: the technical challenge in front of me and the personal disaster waiting at home. By the time I finished, dawn was painting the Seattle skyline in shades of gray and pink. My phone had 3 missed calls from Alma and 2 text messages. Where are you? We need to talk. I drove home through empty streets, my head buzzing with caffeine and revelations. The house was quiet when I let myself in, but I could hear voices from upstairs, Alma and Vanna, talking in urgent whispers. I climbed the stairs slowly, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet Alma had insisted on installing last year. Their voices grew clearer as I approached our bedroom. Can't keep doing this, Vanna was saying. Cedric's not stupid. Cedric's a computer nerd who thinks debugging code is exciting, Alma replied. He has no idea what real passion looks like. And Trent does? Trent makes me feel alive. When I'm with him, I remember who I used to be before I got trapped in this suburban nightmare. I stopped breathing. What about the kids? They're almost grown. Ross will graduate college next year, and Maya's got her own life. They don't need me hovering over them anymore. And Cedric? A long pause. Then Alma's voice, cold as January rain. Cedric will be fine. He's got his computers and his routines. Honestly, I think he'll be relieved. I backed away from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. 22 years of marriage, 2 children, a mortgage, shared dreams and disappointments, and quiet Sunday mornings. All of it reduced to a suburban nightmare she wanted to escape. In my home office, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Project Disclosure. Then I began to plan. Monday morning arrived with Seattle's typical drizzle and the kind of gray sky that made everything look washed out and tired. I sat in my car outside First National Bank, watching raindrops race down the windshield while I waited for them to open. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked through the glass doors and approached the customer service desk. The young woman behind the counter had the eager smile of someone new to the job. Good morning, Mr. Fallon. How can I help you today? I need to transfer some funds from our joint checking account to my business account. Of course. How much would you like to transfer? All of it. Her smile flickered. All of it? Every penny. I slid my identification across the counter. It's perfectly legal. Joint account means either party can access the full balance. 20 minutes later, I walked out of the bank with a receipt showing a 0 balance in the account Alma used for her daily expenses. The business account, which only I could access, now held $37,000. My phone rang before I reached my car. Cedric? Vanna's voice, breathless with excitement. Are you busy? I need to show you something. I'm on my way to work. What's going on? Can you meet me at that coffee shop on Pine Street? The one with the terrible jazz music? Vanna, please, it's about Alma. 15 minutes later, I sat across from Vanna in a corner booth at Grind Coffee, surrounded by the sound of overpriced espresso machines and a saxophone player who clearly thought he was the next Kenny G. Vanna looked different than she had at dinner Friday night. Her hair was pulled back severely, and she wore dark jeans and a black sweater that made her look like she was dressed for espionage. I wasn't sure if I should show you this, she said, sliding her phone across the table. But after listening to her on Friday night, the screen showed a series of text messages between Alma and someone listed as TD. The timestamp was from Saturday afternoon, while I'd been at the office fixing the Peterson database. Bring the red wine and that silk thing you wore in Aspen, read the first message. Already packed, Alma had replied. Room 412? Change to the penthouse suite. You deserve the best view while I make you forget you're married. I stared at the screen until the words blurred together. How did you get these? She left her phone on the kitchen counter yesterday morning. It kept buzzing, so I thought it might be important. Vanna's voice was quiet. I'm sorry, Cedric. I know this hurts. Actually, it doesn't hurt as much as I expected. I handed the phone back. Can you forward these to me? That's already did, along with the photos. Photos? She swiped to the next screen. Alma and Trent Duval in what looked like a hotel room, her head thrown back in laughter, his hand on her thigh. Another photo showed them on a balcony overlooking the city, his arms wrapped around her from behind. There are more, Vanna said softly. I don't need to see them. I leaned back in the booth, my mind already working through possibilities. Vanna, can I ask you something? Anything? Why are you showing me this? Alma's your sister. Her expression hardened. Alma's been lying and cheating for months while you've been nothing but kind to me. You remembered my favorite cake. You helped me move my stuff when Derek changed the locks. You listened when I cried about my marriage falling apart. She paused. Besides, I know what it feels like to be betrayed. No one should go through that alone. My phone buzzed, a text from Alma. Why is our checking account empty? I showed Vanna the message. She raised an eyebrow. Already making moves? Just leveling the playing field. I typed back, bank error. I'll look into it. You're going to make her sweat. I'm going to make her think. But Alma wasn't in a thinking mood. She called 3 times during my drive to work, and by the time I reached the office, she'd escalated to voicemails. Cedric, this isn't funny. I have bills to pay. Call me back right now, or I'm driving to your office. I know you did something with our money. Fix it. Jules looked up from his workstation as I settled in at my desk. You look like someone who didn't sleep much. Long weekend. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Peterson recovery files. How's the cleanup going? Better than expected. Duval's people are actually impressed with how quickly we restored their data. Might lead to more contracts. Great. More work with ethical business partners. You say that like it's a bad thing. Before I could respond, the elevator chimed and Alma strode onto our floor like a woman on a mission. She wore her power suit, navy blue with sharp shoulders, and the expression she reserved for hostile takeovers and difficult clients. Every head in the office turned to watch her march toward my desk. Alma had that effect on people, commanding attention whether she wanted it or not. We need to talk, she said, loud enough for half the floor to hear. Good morning to you too, darling. I didn't look up from my screen. How was your weekend? Don't play games with me, Cedric. Where's our money? Our money? I finally met her eyes. I wasn't aware we still had our anything. Her face flushed red. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you should check with Trent about covering your expenses. I hear venture capitalists are very generous with their investments. The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Around us, the office had gone completely quiet. Even the keyboards had stopped clicking. I don't know what you think you know. I know about the Fairmont Hotel. I kept my voice conversational, almost friendly. I know about the penthouse suite. I know about the silk thing from Aspen. She gripped the edge of my desk. You went through my phone? I didn't have to. Her eyes darted around the office, taking in the audience of coworkers who were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. This is neither the time nor the place for this conversation, she said through gritted teeth. You're right. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. This might be more appropriate for your office. She snatched the envelope and tore it open. Inside were printed copies of her text messages with Trent, the hotel receipts I'd found, and a detailed timeline of her activities over the past 3 months. You've been busy, she whispered. I'm good at my job. Problem identification and solution development. I leaned back in my chair. The problem is clear. I'm still working on the solution. She stuffed the papers back into the envelope, her hands shaking slightly. This isn't over. No, it's not. After she left, the office slowly returned to normal, though I caught several coworkers glancing in my direction with expressions ranging from sympathy to admiration. Jules rolled his chair over to my desk. Dude, what just happened? System failure, I said. But I'm working on a patch. That afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Meridian Systems' main number. Cedric Fallon. Mr. Fallon, this is Patricia Chen from Human Resources. We need you to come to Conference Room B immediately. Is there a problem? We'll discuss it when you get here. Conference Room B was where they held disciplinary meetings and termination interviews. I'd been in the room exactly once before, 3 years ago, when they had promoted me to senior architect. Patricia Chen sat at the head of the conference table with 2 other people I didn't recognize, a man in an expensive suit and a woman with a legal pad covered in notes. Mr. Fallon, please have a seat. Patricia's voice was carefully neutral. This is David Morrison from our legal department and Janet Walsh from corporate compliance. I sat down, my mind racing through possibilities. We've received some serious allegations regarding your conduct, Morrison said, opening a file folder. Specifically, accusations of financial misconduct and misuse of company resources. What kind of accusations? Your wife contacted us this morning. She claims you've been using your administrative access to manipulate client accounts for personal gain. The room went very quiet. Outside the window, Seattle's skyline stretched toward Elliott Bay, gray and indifferent. That's interesting, I said finally. Did she mention that someone used her credentials to access the Peterson system on Friday night, from a hotel room downtown? The 3 of them exchanged glances. We're aware of the Peterson incident, Walsh said. Mrs. Fallon explained that you asked her to log in remotely to help with the recovery effort. From the Fairmont Hotel? She was attending a business dinner with the client. At midnight on a Friday? Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Fallon, we're going to need you to provide a detailed account of your activities over the weekend, along with documentation of any system access or file transfers. Of course. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I've prepared a complete report. The folder contained everything: server logs showing the unauthorized access from Alma's account, screenshots of the corrupted Peterson database, my own access records documenting the 4-hour recovery effort, and a timeline that made it clear I'd been cleaning up someone else's mess. But I'd also included something extra, a printed copy of Alma's text messages with Trent, including the ones that mentioned celebrating our new partnership and mixing business with pleasure. Morrison's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline as he read through the documents. This is quite comprehensive, he said. I'm thorough. Patricia cleared her throat. Mr. Fallon, are you alleging that your wife deliberately sabotaged a client's system? I'm not alleging anything. I'm presenting data and letting you draw your own conclusions. They spent 20 minutes reviewing the documents while I sat in silence, watching clouds gather over the sound. Finally, Morrison closed the folder. We'll need to investigate this further, but based on this preliminary review, it appears the allegations against you are unfounded. What about the allegations against my wife? That's a separate matter. We'll be conducting our own investigation into the Peterson incident. I stood to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. You might want to review Mrs. Fallon's access logs for the past few months. I have a feeling the Peterson incident wasn't isolated. Walking back to my desk, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The first strike had landed exactly where I'd aimed it, right at the intersection of Alma's professional credibility and personal secrets. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanna. How did it go? Better than expected, I typed back. Want to grab dinner tonight? I feel like celebrating. What are we celebrating? The beginning of the end. The next morning brought an unexpected gift. Alma's car wasn't in the driveway when I left for work. She'd come home late the night before, slamming doors and muttering under her breath, but I'd been in my office with the door locked, reviewing security camera footage from our home system. The cameras had been my idea 2 years ago, after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. Alma had protested the expense, but I'd insisted on comprehensive coverage. Now I was grateful for my paranoia. The footage from the previous Thursday was particularly illuminating. Alma arriving home at 2:30 p.m., followed 20 minutes later by a silver Porsche. Trent Duvall emerging from the driver's seat, straightening his tie, looking around the neighborhood like he owned it. What happened next made my jaw clench. Alma greeting him at the front door, not with a handshake or professional hug, but with the kind of embrace reserved for lovers. His hands on her waist, her fingers in his hair, both of them laughing as they stumbled into my house. They'd been inside for 3 hours. I'd been in Portland that day, meeting with a potential client. The meeting had run long, so I'd stayed overnight at a downtown hotel, texting Alma that I wouldn't be home until Friday morning. She'd replied, "Miss you. House feels empty without you." While Trent Duvall was in our bedroom, I copied the footage to an encrypted drive and added it to my growing collection of evidence. Then I called in sick to work and drove to a private investigation firm in Bellevue. Marcus Webb Investigations occupied the third floor of a glass office building that looked like every other glass office building in the Seattle metro area. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, directed me to a conference room where I waited exactly 3 minutes before the door opened. "Mr. Fallon, I'm Detective Ray Kowalski, retired Seattle PD. I understand you need some assistance with a domestic matter." Kowalski was younger than I'd expected, maybe 50, with graying hair and the kind of steady gaze that suggested he'd seen everything at least twice. "My wife is having an affair," I said without preamble. "I need documentation for divorce proceedings." "How long has this been going on?" "Months, probably. I only became aware of it recently." He pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "Do you know who she's involved with?" "Trent Duvall. He's a client of her company and—" I paused. This is where it gets complicated. I explained the Peterson database incident, Alma's compromised credentials, the hotel receipts, the text messages. Kowalski listened without interruption, his pen moving steadily across the paper. "You've done good work," he said when I finished. "Most people come to me with suspicions and hurt feelings. You've got documentation? I want more. I want everything." "Everything meaning what, exactly?" "Financial records, communication logs, travel history, a complete picture of their relationship." I leaned forward. "I want to know how long this has been going on, how much money she's spent on it, and whether there are any other men involved." "That's going to take time and money." "I have both." We spent an hour discussing logistics and fees. Kowalski's rates were higher than I'd expected, but his reputation was solid. 3 days of surveillance, complete background checks on both Alma and Trent, financial analysis, and a comprehensive report. "One more thing," I said as we shook hands. "Discretion is important. My wife works in public relations. If word of this gets out before I'm ready—" "Mr. Fallon, I've been doing this for 15 years. Discretion is what you're paying for." I drove home feeling like I'd just hired a general for a war I was finally ready to fight. The house was still empty, but Vanna's car sat in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, making coffee and looking like she hadn't slept much. "Rough night?" I asked. Alma came home around 11, furious about something. She was on the phone with someone, probably Trent, talking about damage control and managing the situation. Vanna handed me a mug. "I think you rattled her." "Good. Where is she now?" "Emergency meeting at her office. Something about the Peterson account." I almost smiled. "That's going to be an interesting conversation." "Cedric, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What's your endgame here? Are you trying to save your marriage or end it?" I considered the question while I sipped my coffee. 3 weeks ago, I might have said, save it. I'd been married to Alma for 22 years, built a life with her, raised children together. The idea of starting over at 42 had seemed overwhelming, but that was before I'd seen the hotel receipts, before I'd heard her call our marriage a suburban nightmare, before I'd watched Trent Duvall walk into my house like he belonged there. "I'm trying to win," I said finally. "Win what?" "Everything." My phone rang. Alma's number. "Hello, sweetheart." "Don't you dare sweetheart me." Her voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "What did you tell them?" "Tell who?" "You know exactly who?" Peterson Holdings just terminated their contract with my firm, effective immediately. "That's unfortunate. Bad for business when clients lose confidence in your security protocols. This is your fault." "How do you figure?" "The database corruption, the investigation, all of it. You set me up." I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at our backyard, the garden Alma had planned but never maintained, the deck where we'd hosted barbecues when the kids were younger, the swing set that Ross and Maya had outgrown years ago. "Alma, let me ask you something. When you used your credentials to access the Peterson system from your hotel room, did you really think there wouldn't be logs?" Silence. "Did you think I wouldn't notice, or did you just not care?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "What wasn't supposed to happen? The affair or getting caught?" More silence. Then quietly, "I never meant for you to get hurt, but you meant for it to happen." "Yes." The honesty surprised me. No denials, no excuses, just a simple admission that she'd chosen to betray our marriage. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For finally telling the truth." I hung up and turned to find Vanna watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "That sounded final," she said. It was. That evening, I picked up Maya from soccer practice and Ross from his part-time job at the bookstore. We went to dinner at their favorite Italian place, just the three of us, and for 2 hours I pretended everything was normal. But kids are perceptive, especially when their parents are falling apart. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" Maya asked as we waited for dessert. Ross looked up from his phone, suddenly interested in the conversation. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you've been acting weird for weeks. Mom's never home anymore, and this morning I heard her crying in the bathroom. I looked at my children, Ross with Alma's sharp features and my dark hair, Maya with her mother's eyes but a gentleness that was entirely her own, and realized they deserved better than lies and pretense. "Your mother and I are having some problems," I said carefully. "We're trying to work through them." "Is she cheating on you?" Ross's question was direct, matter of fact, like he was asking about the weather. "Ross, because if she is, you should dump her. Life's too short to waste on people who don't respect you." Maya kicked him under the table. "Don't talk about Mom like that." "I'm not talking about Mom. I'm talking about someone who's acting like Mom but isn't the person who raised us." Out of the mouths of babes. "Whatever happens," I said, "it won't change how much I love both of you. That's the one thing you never have to worry about." Maya reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We love you too, Dad." When we got home, Alma's car was in the driveway, but the house felt cold and empty despite the lights being on. I found her in our bedroom, packing a suitcase. "Going somewhere." "Business trip, San Francisco, 3 days." "Alone?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Alma, the kids know something's wrong." "The kids will be fine. They're resilient." "They're not fine. Maya asked me tonight if we were getting divorced." That made her pause in her packing. "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that we're having problems." And that I love them, which is more than you bothered to say before you started planning your romantic getaway." She zipped the suitcase with more force than necessary. "This isn't a romantic getaway. It's a business trip. With Trent. With a client. Same thing, apparently." She turned to face me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the woman I'd married. Uncertain, vulnerable, maybe even regretful. "Cedric, Don't." I held up a hand. "Whatever you're about to say, don't. We're past the point of explanations." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means have a nice trip. Try not to corrupt any databases while you're gone." I left her standing in our bedroom and went to my office, where I spent the next 3 hours researching divorce attorneys and calculating asset division. By the time I went to bed, in the guest room, I'd made a decision. The war was just beginning. Alma left for San Francisco on Thursday morning without saying goodbye. I watched from the kitchen window as she loaded her suitcase into the trunk of her BMW, her movements sharp and efficient. She wore the black dress she'd bought for our anniversary dinner last year, the one she'd claimed was too expensive to wear more than once. Apparently Trent Duval was worth the expense. "She's really going through with it," Vanna said, joining me at the window with 2 cups of coffee. "Did you think she wouldn't?" "I thought she might come to her senses. Remember who she was before she became obsessed with status and appearances." "When was that?" Vanna considered the question. "College, maybe. She used to laugh more, worry less about what other people thought." "What changed?" "Life. Marriage. Kids. The same things that change everyone, I guess." She paused. "But most people don't handle it by having affairs with their clients." My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Kowalski. "Preliminary report ready. Can you meet this afternoon?" "I have to go out later," I told Vanna. "Can you pick up the kids from school?" "Of course." "What should I tell them about their mother?" "That she's working. It's not technically a lie." Kowalski's office felt different in the afternoon light. Less formal, more like a place where serious business got done. He spread a series of photographs across his desk like he was dealing cards. "Your wife and Mr. Duval checked into the Fairmont San Francisco yesterday evening," he said. "Same room, registered under his name." The photos showed them entering the hotel together, Alma's hand on Trent's arm, both of them smiling like they were on their honeymoon. "How long has this been going on?" "Based on credit card records and travel patterns, at least 6 months. Probably longer." Kowalski pulled out a thick folder. "They've taken 4 trips together. Aspen, Portland, Vancouver, and now San Francisco. Always high-end hotels, always charged to his business accounts. Smart. Harder to trace. Not that hard. Mr. Duval isn't particularly careful about covering his tracks. Rich men rarely are. The folder contained a comprehensive financial analysis that made my stomach turn. Alma had spent over $15,000 in the past 6 months on clothes, jewelry, and spa treatments, all charged to credit cards I'd never seen. She opened these accounts using your joint tax returns as income verification, Kowalski explained. Technically legal, since you're married, but ethically questionable. What else? Phone records show daily contact between them, sometimes for hours at a time. Text messages indicate the relationship became physical sometime in March. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to secure the Peterson contract that would eventually blow up in our faces. There's more, Kowalski said, his tone suggesting I wasn't going to like what came next. He handed me a surveillance photo taken outside an upscale restaurant in downtown Seattle. Alma and Trent at a corner table, but they weren't alone. 2 other couples sat with them, all of them laughing at something Trent was saying. Recognize anyone? I studied the faces. The woman sitting next to Alma was Janet Morrison, her business partner. The man across from them was David Chen, who owned 3 successful restaurants in the area. They're not hiding it anymore, I said. Doesn't look like it. This was taken last Tuesday at Canlis. They were there for 2 hours, very public, very affectionate. Who else knows? Hard to say, but in my experience, when people start flaunting affairs at places like Canlis, the secret's already out. I paid Kowalski's fee and drove home with the folder on the passenger seat, its contents feeling like a loaded weapon. The kids were in the living room when I walked in, Maya doing homework at the coffee table, Ross playing video games with the sound turned low. How was school? I asked. Weird, Maya said without looking up from her textbook. Jessica Chen asked me if Mom was dating her uncle. Ross paused his game. David Chen, the restaurant guy? That's the one. Apparently her family saw Mom at Canlis with some businessman. Jessica thought maybe you guys were separated or something. I sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. What did you tell her? That Mom was probably having a business dinner, but she seemed pretty sure it wasn't business. Why? Maya's cheeks flushed pink. Because of how they were sitting, and because Mom was wearing her anniversary dress. Smart kid. Too smart. Dad, Ross said, setting down his controller. Are you okay? You look like you're going to be sick. I'm fine. Just tired. But I wasn't fine. I was angry. Angrier than I'd ever been in my life. Not just at Alma for cheating, but for being careless about it. For letting our daughter find out through gossip at school. For turning our private pain into public entertainment. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat in my office and made a list of everyone who knew about the affair. Janet Morrison, who'd been Alma's business partner for 8 years. David Chen, who'd catered our anniversary party. Their spouses, who'd undoubtedly shared the gossip with friends. By my count, at least a dozen people in our social circle knew my wife was cheating on me. People we'd invited to dinner parties, whose kids had played with our kids, who'd sent Christmas cards and birthday wishes and condolences when my father passed away 2 years ago. They all knew, and none of them had thought to mention it to me. I opened my laptop and began typing. The email was simple, direct, and devastating. I attached copies of the hotel receipts, the credit card statements, and selected photos from Kowalski's surveillance. Then I composed a message that took me 3 drafts to get right. Dear friends and family, I wanted you to hear this from me directly, rather than through gossip and speculation. My wife Alma has been having an affair with Trent Duval for the past 6 months. They are currently together in San Francisco on what she described to our children as a business trip. I'm sharing this information because many of you have already seen them together publicly, and I'd rather address the situation honestly than pretend everything is normal. Our marriage is over, and I'll be filing for divorce when she returns. I appreciate your friendship and support during this difficult time. I ask only that you respect our children's privacy as we navigate this transition. Best regards, Cedric. I reviewed the recipient list twice. Alma's mother Evelyn, my brother Tom, our closest friends, several neighbors, and the parents of Maya's friends who'd already started asking questions. My finger hovered over the send button for a full minute. Then I clicked it. The responses started coming within an hour. Shock, sympathy, offers of support, and, most satisfying, several messages from people who'd suspected something but hadn't known how to approach me. I saw them at the symphony last month, wrote our neighbor, Patricia. I was going to mention it, but I hoped I was wrong. Janet Morrison asked me not to say anything, came from David Chen's wife. She said it was complicated. I should have told you anyway. But the most interesting response came from someone I hadn't expected to hear from, Trent Duval's business partner, Michael Rodriguez. Cedric, I had no idea this was going on. Trent told me he was pursuing new business opportunities in the PR sector. If I'd known he was destroying a marriage, I would have intervened. Please call me when you are ready to discuss this further. I stared at that message for a long time. Trent had been lying to his business partner, just as Alma had been lying to me, which meant they'd both been living double lives, maintaining facades while pursuing their affair. The thought gave me an idea. I picked up my phone and dialed Michael Rodriguez's number. Michael, this is Cedric Fallon. I think we need to talk. Michael Rodriguez had the kind of corner office that screamed success. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, leather furniture that probably cost more than my car, and a view that made Seattle look like a postcard. He also had the expression of a man who just discovered his business partner was a liability. Trent never mentioned he was involved with a married woman, Michael said, pouring coffee from a machine that looked like it belonged in a NASA laboratory. He told me Mrs. Fallon was helping us expand into the public relations sector. Technically true, just not the whole truth. How long has this been going on? I handed him a copy of Kowalski's report. At least 6 months, probably longer. Michael flipped through the pages, his frown deepening with each revelation. The expenses alone? Jesus, Cedric, he's been charging their hotel rooms to our corporate account. That's a $250,000 tax liability if the IRS decides these weren't legitimate business expenses. Which they weren't? Which they definitely weren't. He closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. What do you want from me? Information. Trent's been lying to you, and I'd like to know what else he's been dishonest about. You mean besides using our company credit card to finance his affair? That's a start. Michael opened his laptop and pulled up what looked like financial records. Trent handles our client development and investor relations. He has discretionary spending authority up to $50,000 per quarter. Has he been using it? Every penny. Travel, entertainment, business development. I never questioned it because our revenue has been strong. He paused. But now I'm wondering how much of that revenue is actually tied to legitimate business versus other activities, such as? Alma's firm has been our PR agency for the past year. They've billed us almost $200,000 for services that, frankly, I'm not sure we needed. The pieces were falling into place. Alma and Trent hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been running a sophisticated financial scheme, using their relationship to justify inflated contracts and questionable expenses. Michael, I need a favor. What kind of favor? I want to be there when Trent gets back from San Francisco. I want to confront him with all of this, and I want witnesses. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Maybe, but it also sounds like justice. Michael considered this for a long moment, then smiled. The kind of smile that suggested he'd been waiting for an excuse to have a difficult conversation with his business partner. When are they coming back? Tomorrow night. Then we'd better get prepared. I spent Friday morning at my lawyer's office, finalizing divorce papers and reviewing the evidence package that would accompany them. Jennifer Walsh was the kind of attorney who charged by the hour but earned every penny, sharp, thorough, and completely unsympathetic to cheating spouses. This is one of the most well-documented cases I've seen, she said, reviewing Kowalski's report. Your wife's going to have a very difficult time claiming she deserves half of your assets. What about the credit cards she opened? Fraud? We can pursue both civil and criminal charges if necessary. And the inflated contracts with Trent's company? Potentially criminal conspiracy, depending on how much money we're talking about. $200,000. Jennifer's eyebrows climbed toward her hairline. That's felony territory. Good to know. I left the lawyer's office feeling like I was carrying ammunition for a war I was finally ready to win. But first, I had to get through the weekend with my kids, who were starting to ask more pointed questions about their mother's absence. She's been gone a lot lately, Maya said over breakfast Saturday morning. Work has been demanding. Since when? She used to complain about how boring her job was. Ross looked up from his cereal. Maybe she got a promotion. Or maybe she's having a midlife crisis, Maya said with the casual cruelty that only teenagers can manage. Maya? What? I'm just saying. Jennifer's mom went through the same thing last year. Started wearing younger clothes, going out all the time, acting like she was 25 again. And how did that work out? Divorce? But Jennifer says her dad is happier now. I looked at my daughter, 17 years old, sharp as a blade, already cynical about marriage and love, and wondered what kind of example Alma and I had been setting. Sometimes people grow apart, I said carefully. It doesn't mean anyone's at fault. But sometimes someone is at fault, Ross said. Sometimes people make choices that hurt other people. Yes, sometimes they do. And when that happens, the person who got hurt shouldn't just pretend everything's okay. I met his eyes across the breakfast table. No, they shouldn't. Good, he said, returning to his cereal, because pretending sucks. That evening, I got a text from Alma. Flight delayed. Won't be home until late. I showed the message to Vanna, who was helping Maya with her college application essays. Convenient, Vanna said. Gives them more time together. Or gives me more time to prepare. For what? The final act. Sunday night arrived with the kind of rain that made Seattle famous. Steady, persistent, the kind of weather that made you want to stay inside and avoid difficult conversations. Unfortunately, difficult conversations were exactly what I had planned. Alma's car pulled into the driveway at 9:47 p.m. I watched from the living room window as she sat in the driver's seat for several minutes, talking on her phone. Even from a distance, I could see her gesturing animatedly, her free hand moving through the air like she was conducting an orchestra. Finally, she ended the call and walked to the front door, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. I'm home, she called out, setting down her suitcase in the entryway. How was San Francisco? I asked from the couch, not bothering to get up. Productive. We secured 3 new clients. Congratulations. She studied my face, looking for signs of suspicion or anger. I kept my expression neutral, almost bored. The kids asleep? An hour ago. Good. We need to talk. Yes, we do. She sat down in the chair across from me, crossing her legs and smoothing her skirt, the same gestures she used in business meetings when she was trying to establish control. Cedric, I know things have been difficult between us lately. Difficult is one word for it. But I think we can work through this. Marriage is about compromise, about finding ways to meet each other's needs. Whose needs are we talking about? Yours or Trent's? Her carefully composed expression cracked slightly. I don't know what you think you know. I know everything, Alma. The hotels, the credit cards, the inflated contracts. I know about the 6 months of lies, the public humiliation, the fact that our daughter found out about your affair through gossip at school. She went very still. Maya knows? Maya knows, Ross knows, half of Seattle knows. The only person who was supposed to be kept in the dark was me. It's not what you think? It's exactly what I think. I leaned forward. You've been stealing from me, lying to our children, and destroying our family for the sake of a man who charges your hotel rooms to his business account because he's too cheap to pay for them himself. That's not true? I have the receipts, Alma. I have photographs, phone records, financial statements, and witness testimony. I have enough evidence to end your career and possibly send you to prison. She stared at me like I was a stranger. You hired a private investigator? I hired several people. Investigators, lawyers, accountants. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you stop pretending everything is fine. What do you want? I want you to pack your things and leave tonight. This is my house, too. This is the house where you brought your lover while I was out of town. This is where you lied to our children every day for 6 months. This is where you planned your escape from the suburban nightmare of being married to me. I stood up. You don't get to stay here anymore. And if I refuse? Then tomorrow morning, I'll call the district attorney's office and file charges for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. I'll also call the State Bar Association and report your business partner for her role in the scheme. You wouldn't. Try me. She looked around the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. The photos of our family vacations, the kids' artwork still hanging on the walls, the life we'd built together over 2 decades. 22 years, she said quietly. You threw them away, not me. I never meant for it to happen like this. But you meant for it to happen? She nodded, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. I felt trapped, like I was disappearing into this life that wasn't really mine anymore. So you decided to disappear into someone else's life instead. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. It was just an escape. From what? From me? From the kids? From the life we built together? From being ordinary. From being just another suburban wife and mother who gave up her dreams to raise children and manage a household. Those dreams you gave up, they were never yours alone. They were ours. We were supposed to build something together. I know. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. What if I ended it? What if I told Trent it was over and tried to make things right? It's too late for that. Why? Because you didn't just cheat on me, Alma. You made me look like a fool in front of our friends, our neighbors, our children. You turned our marriage into a joke and our family into a cautionary tale. I walked to the front closet and pulled out the suitcase she'd brought back from San Francisco. You have 1 hour, I said, setting it at the bottom of the stairs. Take whatever you need for the next few days. We can arrange for the rest later. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step sounding like a small defeat. I listened to her moving around our bedroom, opening drawers, closing closet doors, gathering the pieces of the life she'd decided to abandon. When she came back downstairs 45 minutes later, she looked smaller somehow, like the weight of her choices had finally settled on her shoulders. The kids will be fine. Better than fine, actually. They'll finally have some honesty in their lives. She paused at the front door, her hand on the knob. I did love you, Cedric. Maybe not the way I should have, but I did love you. I know, that's what makes this so much worse. After she left, I sat in the quiet house and listened to the rain against the windows. Upstairs, my children slept peacefully, unaware that their family had just officially ended. But for the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. The war was over, and I had won. Monday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine and the kind of crisp October air that made Seattle feel like the most beautiful city in the world. I made breakfast for the kids, helped Maya find her missing textbook, and drove Ross to his early morning job interview at the computer store downtown. Normal domestic routine, except for the fact that their mother was gone and wouldn't be coming back. Dad, Maya said as I dropped her off at school, where did Mom go last night? She's staying somewhere else for a while. Because you're getting divorced? Yes. Good, she said, shouldering her backpack. She's been making everyone miserable for months. Maya, I'm serious. You've been walking around like a ghost. Ross has been angry all the time, and Mom acts like we're all just obstacles to whatever she really wants to be doing. She paused at the car door. Maybe now things can get back to normal. What's normal? I don't know, but it has to be better than whatever we've been doing. At the office, I found Jules hunched over his workstation with the intense focus of someone trying to solve an impossible problem. What's the crisis today? I asked. Peterson Holdings. They want to hire us back. Seriously? Apparently, their new IT contractor screwed up their database migration so badly that they're facing a class action lawsuit. They want us to fix it and testify about the original corruption incident. The incident that Alma caused? That's the one? They're willing to pay triple our usual rate for emergency service, plus expert witness fees if it goes to court. I sat down at my desk and pulled up the Peterson files. The irony was perfect. Alma's affair with Trent had led to the database corruption that cost Peterson Holdings their original contract with my company. Now they wanted to hire us back to clean up the mess, which would require me to testify about Alma's unauthorized access to their systems. Jules, do we know who Peterson's new legal counsel is? Some big firm downtown, Morrison, Walsh and Associates. Morrison, as in Janet Morrison, Alma's business partner. This gets better and better, I muttered. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael Rodriguez. Trent's back. Emergency partner meeting at 2 p.m. You still want to be there? Absolutely, I typed back. Bring documentation. This is going to get ugly. The afternoon meeting was held in Rodriguez Capital's main conference room, a glass-walled space that looked out over the Seattle waterfront. Michael sat at the head of the table with a stack of financial reports in front of him. I took a seat near the window, my own folder of evidence within easy reach. Trent Duvall walked in at exactly 2 p.m., looking like a man who'd spent the weekend at expensive restaurants and luxury hotels. His tan was fresh, his suit was perfectly tailored, and his smile suggested he expected this to be a routine business discussion. Michael, good to see you. And Cedric? He paused, his smile faltering slightly. I wasn't expecting you to be here. Surprise, I said. Trent, sit down, Michael said. We have some things to discuss. If this is about the Peterson contract, I can explain. It's about a lot more than Peterson. Michael opened his laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet. It's about $200,000 in questionable expenses, fraudulent business charges, and the fact that you've been lying to me for 6 months. Trent's tan seemed to fade a few shades. I don't know what you're talking about. Hotel rooms in Aspen, Portland, Vancouver, and San Francisco, all charged to our corporate account, all shared with Mrs. Alma Fallon, who happens to be married to the gentleman sitting across from you. Those were legitimate business expenses? For what business? The business of destroying someone else's marriage? I opened my folder and slid a photograph across the table, one of Kowalski's surveillance shots showing Trent and Alma entering the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. Nice picture, I said. You both look very professional. Trent stared at the photograph like it was a snake that might bite him. Cedric, I can explain. Please do. I'm fascinated to hear how you explain 6 months of fraud, adultery, and corporate theft. It's not theft. You used company money to finance an affair with a married woman whose firm was billing your company for inflated services. What would you call it? Michael leaned forward. Trent, I've reviewed our contract with Mrs. Fallon's PR firm. We've paid them almost $200,000 for services that our previous agency provided for $30,000. Alma's firm provides premium services. Alma's firm provides services that you were personally interested in, I said. The question is whether those services were professional or recreational. Trent's composure finally cracked. You self-righteous bastard. You think you're so much better than everyone else sitting in your little office writing code while the real world passes you by. The real world where married men steal from their business partners to impress other men's wives? I didn't steal anything. You stole my wife. You stole my family's security. You stole 6 months of my life while I tried to figure out why my marriage was falling apart. Your marriage was already over. Alma told me. Alma told you what you wanted to hear, just like you told Michael what he wanted to hear about those business expenses. Michael cleared his throat. Gentlemen, let's focus on the business issues. Trent, I'm going to need you to provide documentation for every expense you've charged to the company in the past year. That's going to be difficult. Why? Because some of the receipts are missing. Missing or never existed. Trent didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, Michael said. You're going to reimburse the company for every questionable expense. You're going to terminate our contract with Mrs. Fallon's firm immediately, and you're going to take a leave of absence while we conduct a full audit of your activities. You can't do that. I can, and I am. You've exposed this company to potential criminal charges and civil liability. I have a fiduciary duty to our investors to minimize that exposure. And if I refuse, then I'll have you arrested for embezzlement and fraud. Your choice. Trent looked around the conference room like he was searching for an escape route. Finally, his gaze settled on me. This is all your fault, he said. If you'd been a better husband, none of this would have happened. If I'd been a better husband, you'd have found some other married woman to manipulate. Alma came to me. Alma was vulnerable, and you took advantage of that, just like you took advantage of Michael's trust and my family's stability. She wanted excitement. She wanted attention. There's a difference. She wanted a real man. I stood up slowly, my hands flat on the conference table. A real man doesn't steal from his business partner. A real man doesn't destroy families for entertainment. A real man takes responsibility for his actions instead of blaming everyone else when the consequences catch up with him. Trent's face flushed red. You think you've won something here? You think humiliating me is going to bring your wife back? I don't want my wife back. I want my life back. I want my children to respect me again. I want to look at myself in the mirror without feeling like a fool. And you think destroying my career is going to accomplish that? I think holding you accountable for your choices is going to accomplish that. Michael stood up. This meeting is over. Trent, I want your corporate credit cards, your office keys, and your company laptop on my desk by 5 p.m. Security will escort you out. Michael, we've been partners for 8 years. We've been partners for 8 years, and you've been lying to me for at least 6 months. That partnership is over. After Trent left, escorted by 2 security guards who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, Michael and I sat in the empty conference room and watched the sunset paint Elliott Bay in shades of gold and crimson. I'm sorry about your marriage, Michael said. I'm sorry about your partnership. At least we both found out the truth before it got worse. Could it have gotten worse? Trent was planning to start his own firm. He'd been recruiting our clients and trying to poach our staff. I think the affair with your wife was just the beginning of a much larger betrayal. I thought about that as I drove home through the Seattle traffic. Alma and Trent hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been planning a future together, one that involved destroying the lives and businesses they were leaving behind, but their plans had collapsed under the weight of their own dishonesty, and now they were both facing the consequences of choices that had seemed exciting and romantic in hotel rooms, but looked sordid and criminal in conference rooms and divorce courts. When I got home, I found Maya and Ross in the kitchen, making dinner together, something they'd never done when Alma was around to manage every detail of our domestic life. How was work? Maya asked, stirring something that smelled like actual food. Interesting? Very interesting. Good interesting or bad interesting? Justice interesting. Ross looked up from the salad he was assembling. Does that mean Mom's boyfriend is in trouble? Among other things. Good, Maya said. Maybe now he'll leave other people's families alone. Maybe. We ate dinner together, the 3 of us, and talked about school and work and weekend plans. Normal family conversation, except for the empty chair where Alma used to sit. But the house felt fuller somehow, like the absence of lies and pretense had made room for honesty and peace. After the kids went to bed, I sat in my office and drafted an email to my lawyer, summarizing the day's events and attaching copies of the financial documents Michael had shared with me. Then I opened a new document and began typing. Chapter 1. The day I stopped pretending everything was fine. It was time to tell my story.